My name is HVDES. I'm a music producer and a DJ. I have been producing for probably, I don't know, since like late 2013, early 2014. So like 8 years? I don't know exactly. I'm bad at math. But yeah, genre-wise, I think it's a little hard to pin me down exactly. I like a lot of different shit. I'm inspired by a lot of different stuff. But yeah, I mean, I make everything from like bass music to rock music to, just kind of whatever makes sense to me. But as long as it makes sense to me, as long as it feels authentic, then, I'm gonna do it. So, uh, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
For sure. And kind of diving into it, how have opioids affected your life, and whether it's you personally or the people around you?
Oof. How have opioids affected my life? They have affected my life a lot. Yeah, I've been sober for about 2 years, little over, a couple days over. But yeah, what brought me really like to my knees in terms of like sobriety and like being willing to listen, get sober was fentanyl. Um, because I was only using it for like probably 8 or 9 months, but in that 8 or 9 months, it took me down so quick. Um, and I had never really had much of a problem with opioids before. Like I've obviously like taken Vicodin when I had my wisdom teeth taken out, or normal shit. But like opioids were never my drug of choice. I never used them. I was never around them. So when I got addicted to these perks that were pressed and they were just fentanyl, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Um, I have overdosed before. I'm like really lucky to be here still. I don't even think when I was using at the time I even realized like how close, how many close calls like I had. But yeah, and then I mean I've lost many people who I cared for so deeply to fentanyl, to opioids, and yeah, it's scary shit for sure. It's not a joke, and I think that um, it's scary because it doesn't discriminate. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, oh, you're stereotypical what you'd think of as like a street junkie or whatever you're gonna see on fentanyl, on opioids, on heroin, whatever it is. Um, it's like everyone from, somebody's rich uncle that was prescribed Percocet for their, hip surgery, or like, and then was addicted and then cut off and then started using, but there's no heroin on the streets anymore. It's pretty much all fentanyl. So it's like, people don't know what they're getting themselves into, or and so it's just, it doesn't discriminate. And it's like, there's so many different demographics of people that are affected by opioids. But yeah, for me personally, like it took me down really, really fast. I'm grateful for it because I feel like I'm a very stubborn person, and it was like I needed to like sink to that, level in order um, to see that I wanted better for myself. But the unfortunate thing is that I'm one of the lucky ones that like I got the opportunity to like make it out of that, because so many people don't have that chance, and like with opioids and especially with fentanyl now, it's just like it's not an if you're gonna die, it's a when, so it's like you either change or you die, and that's it. It's not, there's not as much gray area as I feel like there used to be. um of like, oh, well, I'm just gonna, keep fucking around for a little while or whatever. It's like you kind of have to just to decide, like, you know, am I willing to, Russian roulette, gamble my life every single day? And I think that's I think one of the parts about it that affects me so much. It makes me so sad. Is just like how many people like don't make it to that opportunity to change. To that opportunity to like, get away from it, or even people that aren't knowingly doing opioids or knowingly doing fentanyl. But because I wasn't knowingly doing it when I first started using it. I thought I was just using OxyContin because I had never used OxyContin before. So I was like, oh, well, this is really strong, but I guess that's just what it is,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel for a lot of those people, and I've lost a lot of people that I know to fentanyl. Both people that were like dope fiends and people uh, that just did a line of coke one day and fell out, and there was nobody there that knew anything about fentanyl or opioids or Narcan or anything like that, and they died. And yeah, so
I mean, one, I appreciate your personal side of it, and two, I think that's a really important point. I think people do still see fentanyl as just like someone on Skid Row doing
yeah,
heroin.
for sure.
Like they're not thinking about, like you said, it's just they don't even necessarily have to be an addict. It's just someone who did the wrong drug
Yeah.
once and like that was it.
Yeah, no, that's real shit. And I've seen it happen, and that's what's so scary and frustrating about it. I think because especially because I am a music producer and a DJ, I'm around drugs and alcohol so often, and I think about it every single time I see one of my friends take a bump of coke or a bump of K or whatever it is. It's just like how do I drive it home that like this shit does not discriminate, and like even though you trust your guy or you've been buying blow from him for X amount of years, or he's your best friend, or he's your boyfriend, or your whatever, like he could not even know what's in his drugs, you know what I mean? Or she, or whatever. Like, so it's just it's scary. I don't know. That's really the best way for me to describe it. It's scary shit,
Yeah, yeah. I saw a comment from someone on Instagram saying that like test strips are great, but like what if someone trusts their dealer? Like if someone
Yeah,
trusts their dealer, they're not going to think about this. They're just going to assume they're always in the clear.
yeah, for sure. No, and I think that um also like people lie, like you could be friends with somebody for X amount of years, but like what makes you think that like them telling you there's no fentanyl in their drugs so that you buy something from them and help them pay their bills, that they're not going to tell you that there's no fentanyl in their drugs, you know what I mean? Like um friendship doesn't mean shit, especially when it comes to like, the drug game. Like people aren't gonna fucking, people aren't always gonna tell you the fucking truth. So I think that's something that's important to take into consideration. It's like, okay, sure, you trust your guy, but like at what cost? Like you can trust him and then you test your shit, it's negative, sure, cool, trustworthy guy, whatever. But like, you know, people lie, and also people don't know. Like a lot of dealers don't test their shit either, so it's like they don't always know. A lot of times there's people selling drugs that don't know anything about drugs, they just want to make money. So it's like, there's so many variables that go into like why something would have fentanyl in it, or like why somebody would tell you that it doesn't but it actually does, or things like that. So I think that that's just a very counterintuitive way to do drugs, is just to be like, oh, well, I trust my guy. It's like, okay, well, trust in, it's like you're trusting at what cost, basically, you have to think about that.
This is the fallout. This is the fallout.
The question was, have you seen like a more prevalence of opioids in the music scene? And along with that, are you seeing more like visibility of harm reduction with like DJs and producers and whatnot?
I think, yeah, I think there is definitely more of a presence of opioids, but I also think like because of the nature of opioids, like people that are like knowledgeably doing opioids, it's kind of like this underbelly of like the party scene. It's not like, like I said, you don't just walk into a club with like some tinfoil and pills and be like, yo, like let's do this, It's like it's not really like a party drug. Like, yeah, for sure people do it, and it's super common, but I feel like it's not as common, or like socially acceptable as something like coke or ketamine or Molly or these other like party drugs, whatever. But so there definitely is like a presence, like it definitely has a presence. I don't see it openly as much because I'm not doing it anymore. So like, when I was using, I surrounded myself with people that were also using the same things that I was using so that it made me feel less bad about using, you know? So I definitely don't like see it openly as much, but in terms of like fentanyl inside of other drugs, like that is super fucking common. I mean, uh I have lost like so many friends like in and out of the music industry just off of like, coke with fentanyl in it or K with fentanyl in it. And I think like just because of how powerful fentanyl is, um, it makes sense why like more dealers and things are putting it in their drugs because it stretches the profit margin. People love money, so they do shit like that, and then but they're also human beings. They're not fucking like, Harvard chemists and things like that. They're like, normal ass person. It's like, putting some fentanyl into Molly or like into ketamine or into coke, and they're not like, exactly measuring everything out, or they think they are, but it's like, if I'm mixing a bunch of powder up in a bowl, like there's going to be certain caps or certain pills or certain bags that have more fentanyl than others. So that's where it gets really dangerous because it's like, even though somebody might quote unquote know what they're doing or like on a like mathematical level have like calculated everything correctly, to like not kill people or like to reduce like the risk, but the margin for human error there is like still so like incredibly high, and it's not something that you can measure to an exact, amount or put down to an exact science. It just like, it is what it is. And that's I think that's, why even people that have a tolerance to it overdose, like, I mean, when I used to do pills and I used to do those like pressed Percocets, like I would do the same amount every single time, and sometimes that amount would make me fall out, and sometimes it would, you know, not even make a dent in like me. And that's terrifying because that is across the board, whatever drug you do, like that's just, it's kind of like this Russian roulette game, and you never really know. Yeah, I think it's increasingly more common now, just because like, and then people like, they wonder why, but you have to look at it like financially, like monetarily, like that's why, like that's why you see it more. People like that don't understand drugs at all, or like, you know, have never done them or have no experience with them, they have a hard time wrapping their head around like, why the fuck would you put fentanyl in cocaine? Like, first of all, one's an upper, one's a downer. Second of all, it's like they just don't get it. They're like, fentanyl kills people. It's like, yeah, no shit, but like people that are just trying to like multiply their profit margin and don't give a fuck about the people that are doing their drugs, like it doesn't matter to them, you know. They're like, if I can make more money, I'm gonna do it. So it's increasingly more common, and there is a like money is always a huge motivator, you know what I mean. And then when it comes to things like ketamine or Molly, it's like fentanyl, like a trace amount of fentanyl in something like ketamine or Molly, like, you know, people won't really be able to tell. They'll be like, oh, this is like super strong or whatever, because they don't know what fentanyl feels like and they don't know like anything about it. So it's like, as long as people can make more money, they will. And so it's going to be more common, and it's going to get worse because there are other analogs of fentanyl that are like stronger, like carfentanil and things like that, that are like way more potent than fentanyl. So it's going to get worse, and it's going to get more common, and like that's scary, you know, because it's already like so bad, and it's like already within the last like 3 years I have seen at least like 25 people die that like were close to me, you know, which is crazy because like I like that's a lot, you know what I mean. The fact that it's number one cause of death is fucked up, like over COVID, over car accidents, over like suicide, like fentanyl isn't like, if you, I was thinking about that the other day, I was just like, that is fucking crazy. Like that's actually insane that we are living in a time where drug overdose on fentanyl specifically is the number one cause of death for people in America from ages 18 to 45 or 35 or whatever, over everything else. Like that's insane. That's like actually fucking, like that's blows my mind, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I guess that brings me to the question of why do you support End Overdose?
Well, I think that harm reduction is really important, because I think that it's the only realistic way to like make a change, you know, because like this kind of a problem requires like a multi-pronged approach. Like we can't just like keep locking people away for like doing drugs or like being on drugs or like whatever. Like it has to be like the only way to like help people that are like using or fuck with party drugs, even just like opioids in general, is to one, provide resources for them like when they're ready to get help, because the nature of addiction is like you're not going to get help unless you're ready to get help, right? So it's like I can't force you to like be sober or like not do drugs if you're not ready to not do drugs. But so like providing resources, you know, and giving people the option to like utilize those resources, which is like by doing things like carrying Narcan and like test strips and things like that. I think because like what I was saying earlier, where like the sad part about fentanyl is that it removes that chance. Like it's not, you know, it's not this like slow decline where like over time you kind of lose things and you realize how shitty your life gets, and then you're like, fuck, like I need, you know, help. It doesn't like you like, maybe if you're lucky, like I was fucking lucky that I got to like, you know, have that space to change, but like so many people aren't, because of just how powerful and like dangerous fentanyl is. So many people don't get that opportunity. So providing tools for harm reduction gives people, I think, the chance to change, or the chance to like, you know, live, which is so important. And like, I don't know, because we're never going to be able to like, as long as there's money to be made off of something, people are going to keep trafficking it. People are going to keep pushing it. They're going to keep putting it in their drugs, you know. So like saying like, oh, I trust my guy, or like you know, shit like that is just so like it doesn't actually do anything, you know what I mean? The only real, I think, change can be made from like harm reduction.
Pupils shrinking, don't know what I was thinking. Just felt like I was sinking, but now the wound is stinging, biting off the hand that feeds me.
All good. And what would you say to someone in the music scene who's struggling with opioids, or knows someone who's affected by it?
I think obviously it's hard because I think that when people have a problem, like they're not always ready to listen to like a solution. But I think like I would just say that, you know, there is a solution, like there is a way out. And you know, you don't have to die. You don't have to be another statistic. Like you don't have to be that. But the chances of you being that, if you are using fentanyl or you are using opioids, is extremely high. So I don't know. That's what I would say. I would say that like reaching out for help is not. There's no weakness in that. You know, there's only power in reaching out for help. I think the best way to support somebody who's struggling, for people, because you know you were saying what would I say to somebody, like I think to somebody that knows somebody who's struggling with opioids or just struggling with addiction in general, the best way to support them is to treat them with compassion, but you know also hold boundaries, and like by that I just mean like not enabling their behavior, but like also treating them from a place of compassion and not like, you know, I don't know, because when you talk to an addict and you talk to them with compassion, it's disarming, right? And it's like the nature of addiction is a disease of the mind, so it like wants to keep me trapped. So like if I'm in my active addiction, I can find any reason to spin what you're telling me in a way that makes you the enemy and makes it okay for me to do what I'm doing, then I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? I'm going to spin that. So I think like treating people that are struggling with compassion is the only, you know, way to disarm them and to maybe allow them to see a different perspective. But it's tough because when people aren't ready to listen, they're not ready to listen. I think that all you can do is be like, hey, like there is a way out. Here are resources, like, you know, here's Narcan, here's how to use it, here's test strips, like, you know, so that time that they need between surrendering and you know where they're at now is not like, does not have to be like their end, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be result in their death, which is the reality now with something like fentanyl. So yeah, that's what I would say.
For sure. And what does the prospect of ending overdose mean to you, if you had to sum it up?
like of the nonprofit, or like of the concept of like ending overdose?
Just like the concept in general.
I feel like yeah, I'm just tired of like watching people die and like burying the people that I fucking love. So it's like I if I can do anything to use my platform to like, you know, help people at least become aware or like drop their stigma around addiction and what addiction looks like. You know what I mean? Or you know, helping them realize like how common it is to see fentanyl in the drugs that they're doing, that they've already probably done fentanyl and don't even fucking know it because they trust their guy or, you know, whatever. And I think that that's really what it means to me, is just like trying to make a change, because I find myself getting really fucking frustrated because it means a lot to me, you know, like I have had to go to so many funerals for so many people that I love, like funerals that were on fucking Zoom, you know, like there is nothing more shitty than a Zoom funeral. And you know, almost losing my own life and like being in a place where I look at like how blessed I am, and it's like why was I allowed to like make it out of this like you know, this drug that I didn't even know what the fuck I was doing, and I still didn't die, but then so many other people do. Like, I feel like I am obligated to, like, use whatever platform I have to at least, like, reach one person, you know, to like, help them either break their stigma about addiction, or, like, just be some sort of carry the message or be part of the solution somehow, even if it's carrying a fucking fentanyl test strip. You know, like, it doesn't matter if you party or do drugs or don't do drugs. It's just like, you know, anyone, like I said earlier, it doesn't discriminate. So everyone should have it. And I think along with that is just like helping to help people understand why they should have it. Because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't need to have it because I don't do drugs, or, you know, I only do coke on the weekends or whatever, you know. But all it takes is that one fucking time, that one bump of cocaine that, like, you got from one bag that had a little bit too much in it. Like, that is all it fucking takes. Like, it's scary shit. It's really scary shit. And I think, like, that's just, I don't know. Now I feel like that's really, it just is something that means a lot to me because of the fact that, like, I feel so lucky, like, and I feel like out of anyone that should have died, like, not like should have, but like would have died, it would have been me, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't even know I was doing fentanyl until I did heroin. I was like, wait, this is very weak compared to what I'm doing, you know? So I think, like, it's just, you never know. And I'm just like, when I see people dying now, it's just like, I already know, you know? Like, unless there's some other, you know, reason, but like 9 times out of 10, it's like a drug overdose. So I'm like, it's not even a surprise anymore. I think, like, I feel like what I was going to say earlier was kind of just like about the kind of stereotype of the, like, broken artist, the whole, like, archetype of, like, being this fucked up, like, miserable artist, and that is just kind of, like, not a real thing, and that you can, you know, still make sad music and be this, like, edgy, cool person that doesn't, you know, put their life on the line every day or other people's lives by, like, you know, it's so funny because I feel like if I was listening to myself talk about this, like, a couple of years ago, I would have been like, you fucking square. But yeah, it's like, you know, it's just gotten way more dire, I think, in the last couple of years, you know, where it's not, at least if you're going to do it, like, understand the risk of what you're doing and, like, be prepared if something happens, because the chances of something happening are, like, really high, you know? So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. It's awesome.
This is the fallout. This is the fallout.